it's not too late yet.
You're pretty much contrary to everything I said.
And I'm opposed to success, too.
What?
There you go, underrated. Some of the happiest people I know.
I still think back. One of the most memorable experiences was in statistics class, and he would start every class with probably still do. That's just what you do, or did. You read a verse of numbers, and you say, "This is a t-test." And we talk about t-test, whatever we're talking about, the t-test, test, alt z-score, whatever it was, and this is what it is. When they did the census and they did this matter, this was a t-test. Wow. That's exactly what they were doing. He was able to truly integrate the Bible into statistical analysis. That's fine.
Not just the book of numbers, but all the numbers.
You're on the trombone.
How many trombones do you have on there? She went around the corner so fast. And of course, they had to check. But they were really contrary.
So this guy was one of your students?
He majored in business administration and finance, but he took statistics. He said he hasn't gotten over it. Now, he didn't say those words, but I got
That was what I understood.
That's what I understood. And so did you.
The implication.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Nope.
So our speaker system is not working as well. So I've already asked our guest. He's going to have to speak loudly. I will do the same, and hopefully the video picks it up. So welcome to our guest professional dinner event tonight, and we have a really interesting, dynamic speaker, Rich Whitehead. Rich is a '92 graduate of Houghton College, and while he was here, he majored in business and had a minor in economics. He started his career as a manager of the consumer finance company Norwest Financial in Cleveland. And Rich moved to Florida in 1995 to open a branch office of a public relations and advertising company. Well, feeling the need to further his education, Rich came back to New York State and received his MBA in International Business Consulting from Clarkson. And this is where he managed a student-run Canadian-U.S. business consulting service. And he also served as a lead member of the 7-county economic development organization called the North Country Alliance. Upon completion of a global operations program overseas at the University of Maastricht, I still tried. That's in the Netherlands. Rich headed to Chicago to work as a Household International when God intervened by having his paths cross with a pastor from San Antonio. This led Rich to Texas to minister at an Hispanic church and its on-campus college called National Christian University, where he served as a professor of economics and as the interim president of a law school. Pro bono consulting work then led Rich to become partners in a local construction company, Phoenix Design and Construction, where he spent 7 years as CFO before selling the company. After a brief stint of independent consulting, Rich joined the San Antonio Fire Department, where he has worked for the last 15 years. He has risen through the ranks to his current position as a captain. And within the Fire Department union, Rich served as a trustee for 9 years, as well as 3 years on the Legislative Committee, Pension Subcommittee, and as an arbitration consultant. As you can see, that's quite a path, right? Which is why when I met Rich this last year, I said, you really exemplify what it means to be a liberal arts graduate. You should come back and tell your story. And that's why he's here tonight. That's great. So in his spare time, Rich successfully ran for public office as a councilman for the city of Pelotes, where he served 2 terms. So that's right outside of San Antonio. And additionally, he spent the last 6 years owning a small insurance company, Holt & Associates, where he has been recognized nationally as a top 2% producer for 4 of the last 6 years. Despite living in Texas, Rich has maintained his pro status as a downhill skier for a total of 12 years, racing and teaching in both New York and Vermont. Rich has been married to his wife Susan for 19 years and has 2 children. Cassidy, who's a high school junior, is here for a visit day, and Dylan, age 14. So please welcome, from the class of 1992, Rich Whitehead.
I posted this for the recording. And sign a waiver and everything. Henry David Thoreau once penned, I choose to live deliberately, so that when I come to die, I do not realize I have yet to live. Grab life by the horns. This was my senior quote. It's right next to my senior picture that Bill helped me find a copy of the old yearbooks. Next to me in a picture, my senior picture, where me and 2 sorted friends were polar bear floating at Rushford Lake in the middle of January. That was a cool walk home. I was going to experience everything life had to offer. Absolutely everything. I came from the wrong side of the tracks. Broke and poor. All I knew is that success was the opposite of what I knew. But I was going to get it somehow. Well, what is success? And that was the problem. How do we define it? There's plenty of seminars. I'm probably sure at least some people in here have gone through several seminars defining what is success. Is it dollars? And I'll give you the quick answer to that whole seminar if you ever go to one. It's not necessarily dollars. Success can be measured in happiness, family, health, job, career development, contentment. Go ahead and raise your hand if you went into debt to come to college for your health, for family. I didn't think so. We're all here after the dollar, right? So let's go ahead. The title of my speech tonight really should be a paper I should have submitted when I was actually working here. I like a contrarian's view to success using the liberal arts education to navigate your career. We'll try to define success. Let's go ahead and call it tonight for excelling professionally and financially, provide for your family, aid in your level of contentment in this world. Or how to get a job and keep from being homeless and single. All of that. All right? Because some of you are seniors. I talked to somebody today who was graduating in December, which is a month away, and getting ready to really find out what it means to be out on your own. Success. What do I know about success? That bio sounds really pretty healthy. Sounds like a lot of success. But what do I know? I'm actually just a firefighter right now. I'm not a CEO. I've had a lot of experiences in my life. What does it do as a CEO? You're right. I haven't really accomplished what I set out to do at all. Heck, I can barely put a PowerPoint together. My 14-year-old probably would have had flying slides with voice-controlled activations and different slides based on crowd response. Me, I can barely get white and black writing. Thank God PowerPoint is not a requirement for success. So let's start with what's your formula for success. Does anybody here have a formula for success? Anybody have a great plan? Is right on the tip of your tongue? You know what you got going on? Here's a common one. Let's see if it rings. Get good grades in high school. Come to college. Get good grades in college. Hopefully get recruited. Find an entry-level position. Work hard nights and weekends. Get a promotion. Get good raises. Hope your company doesn't go bankrupt or downsize. And hopefully retire and hope your pension or 401k stays solid. It's a pretty common one. Is that anybody's plan in here? Does anybody have a plan? Has anybody thought about that? For real? A little bit? What you got?
Well, like graduating college, I'm a freshman, so graduate college, probably get my MBA, so finally somewhere to go to grad school, and then meet somebody, have a family, or work before then.
All right. Not too far off what we just read. Throwing in family there, which actually is a good part. Somebody here is getting ready to take over their daddy's company or work with her. I wish that would be my plan. Dad didn't quite make it with this company. Some people, when I first came here, I think they had is it PACE? Is it called PACE program for freshmen, the first 9 weeks, if I remember correctly? I was awe-stricken because for me, coming to college was the gateway to great riches and success. I was amazed that 90% of the girls in my PACE group raised their hand because what they came to college for was to find a husband. Dear God, what an expensive dating service. Thank God there's an app for that right now, right? So, really, what is your plan? Work hard? Work hard alone does not do it. It's a given, but it doesn't do it. My dad probably worked harder than anybody I've ever known. 100 hours a week for as long as I can remember. Came from Canterbury, New York. Just over the hill. He lived all over the nation. He was a licensed real estate agent. I talked to a real estate agent here earlier. There you are. He was a licensed real estate agent. Came back to New York, started 4 separate companies. All of them failed. 100 hours a week. Ended up working on a construction crew. 73 years old because he got hurt in a car accident and now can't work. 73 years old, he's going back to get his bachelor's degree and a master's in history and human languages. So hard work doesn't do it. It's a requirement. So what does? I thought a lot about coming to Houghton and why I came to Houghton. Here we go. What can we glean from our time here? What is it that makes us a valuable asset to employers above some of our competition? We know hard work doesn't do it all. What does it? Tonight I'm going to focus on 2 main thought processes. One that Houghton helps with and one that is something that's under your own control. I'm going to talk about paradigms. Anybody know what paradigms are? If anybody says 20 cents, buy a coffee to eat like every single morning. Paradigms. Anybody know what paradigms are? Anybody? Fantastic. Because I learned about this 29 years ago in this very room and it changed my life. And if you pay attention, you will learn something that will radically change the direction of your life. Paradigms. It comes from a Greek and Latin word, and we're having some technical issues, but basically para is the Greek, means beside, and dekanai to display or show, but together literally meant to display side by side. We speak of paradigms in social, macro and micro social economic discussions, but generally, paradigm is a description of the world of human behavior. It's a description of society. Paradigm is a description of the interactions of human beings within a society. People and social events are not based on paradigms. A paradigm is a viewpoint and a perspective and a guiding principle. It's a belief system. Paradigms are also a great barrier to success. These paradigms are the unspoken subconscious fences that define the limits of what we can do. They define the limits of how much we can make. They define who we can date, who we can marry, and what kind of grades you can achieve. Let's put this to the test. Everybody here, seriously, participate. Raise your hand if you seriously believe you can finish every semester from here on out to graduation with 4.0. No way. One person. Excellent. The rest of you, you're limited by your paradigms. You don't believe you can do it. You hear about it in physical fitness. The body can only achieve what the mind can conceive. And it applies to every area of your life. Dating. Talk about the dating app. Quote as a dating app. Excuse me, before I do that, let me talk about one other thing. Accomplishments, physical accomplishments. I took my 12-year-old son skiing to the edge. It's in Colorado. He's 12 there. He's at the top of a triple black diamond run, dropping off the backside of Copper Mountain. He was scared to death. I knew he could do it. I could do it, so why couldn't he do it? I didn't push him off, but I skied down in front of him, so he had no choice but to follow because there really was no going back at that point. And he made it down. I don't know if you can see how steep. The pictures never really show how steep things really are, but I got a fairly decent picture there on the right. And he made it. He survived it. And he smashed through his paradigms on his skiing abilities. And now, for better or worse, he has no skiing-related paradigms whatsoever. In fact, he proved the following year when he beat me at moguls and racing. And as a result, because he now knows he can do anything he sets his mind to, skiing-related. Okay. Well, what about dating? I mentioned that. I have an interesting story. Raise your hand if you ever saw a guy or girl you thought was out of your league that you wanted to date. Boy, the rest of you are all top of the league. I definitely did. But I had more than paradigm issues. I had real issues. Wow. I have more than paradigms working against me, I'll tell you that. But yet, I managed to marry that lady. How do you get from point A to point B? I was in this room almost 30 years ago and heard about paradigms, and there was a girl. It's interesting that the cafeteria politics apparently hasn't changed much. Back in the day, all the art people on that side of the cafeteria, the music majors were over here, the sports and the pretty people were over there, and us anti-disestablishmentarianistics were in the center, discussing the very essence of life. That's where I was. And I looked around, I didn't really find any place that I belonged except for there in the middle. There was this girl, she was beautiful. I don't want to say her name because Lord, she might still be in this area. Might be her kid. This girl was head and shoulders above everybody. I thought, well, let me put this paradigm in class. So I wrote out a note, dear Jane, you don't know me, but I got a crush on you. We'd be interested in going to Big Al's, which, by the way, was pizza and wings the day. I wish we could bring those back, but I just wanted to lament the loss of wings. But and I sent it anonymously in intercampus mail, and then to my horror, as I walked out the door, there was a list of everybody's names and everybody's campus box numbers. And I'm like, oh dear God, I figure out who it is because I didn't know what box came from. But she said yes, and we went out on a date. And we had a great time. We didn't have a date after that. But to her credit, she sat down and said, I'd love to talk to you. And I was blown away. It was the greatest day of my life up to that point. And the next day at lunch, we had all round tables like this up there. I saw her sitting over there, the pretty people and the sports people. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go over there and sit down. And I did. I was nervous. I sat down a couple seats away from her and said, hey, Rich. I said, hey, Jane. And the other sports people were like, they knew where I was, but like, a little bit out of your zone, aren't you? But we had a good time. And you know what I found out? I found out that I had a lot of common with those people. And it turns out that ended up being my place in this school. I found people that to this day I still have great friendships with. It wasn't people that I felt were better than me. And as a result, I started looking to other areas. And I started breaking down my walls of what I thought was socially my playground. And before long, I was able to interact with everybody on campus. I didn't really abandon my people. I just expanded my circle of influence. I found my confidence. The confidence is what it takes to be able to succeed. Nobody wants to hire somebody that's just mealy mouthed and can't really do something. I don't want to bring in a judgment. You just need to find your confidence. Be bold. It was my ability to communicate with people who were not like me that led to success. So let's talk about earnings. Because I'm really curious about perspective at this point. Raise your hand if you feel relatively certain when you graduate you'll find a job making $30,000 a year. Everybody, 50,000 a year? 100,000 a year? Maybe 250? What are you going to do for 100,000 a year?
I don't know yet.
All right. I like it.
Relatively certain. I was shaking my hand, so like kind of certain.
All right. I finished high school in Kansas City across the Delta. I watched my dad work 100 hours a week and my mom made it work 80 hours a week. Both of them owned a business, and the combined income never exceeded $35,000 a year. My paradigm was just that. If I can make $30,000 a year, I'd really make it big. I have made and lost more than that single days in investments on the stock market. What a far road I've traveled. But how did I get through that barrier? Because I couldn't imagine. I had arguments with people that moved up were here from New York City. And nobody makes $100,000 a year. What are you talking about? Nobody makes $100,000 a year. Oh, yeah, nobody does. Well, we debated it all the time. It was my paradigm. I was limited. Could not conceive anything better. Now, we're in the top few percent earners in America. As a firefighter, and a physical therapist, a small-sided business, how can that possibly be? The math doesn't seem to add up. You'd be surprised how little it takes to be in the top 10% earners. Anybody venture a guess what it takes to be in the top 10% as a household, not as a single, as a household?
150,000.
Not too bad. 184,000. You're in the top 10%. Firefighter and a physical therapist. Teacher and a physical therapist. So now you have a tool to use. It's like a hammer. Okay, hammer's great for hammering nails. Not so great for washing dishes. 2 Peter 1 speaks of a model to build and develop a godly life. It says to add knowledge to our goodness. And to knowledge add self-control, and to self-control perseverance. Okay, so it's not just naming and claiming. Going off half-baked thinking you can just break a mental barrier and have it happen for you, that doesn't do it. It's just a step. Okay? You want to add to your knowledge of breaking your paradigms and reestablish them. You have to add self-control, which is working hard, and perseverance, giving it time. Shifting your paradigms will simply prepare you to have faith in yourself to accept the opportunities that come in your life. It's not a guarantee you'll always succeed. Case in point, how I got to Texas. I was all set after I graduated with my MBA to go to Household International. They flew me out there for an interview, and I went off to University of Maastricht to finish my global operations, came back from that, and they said, no, we're not going to hire you. We hired 3 of the MBAs that worked for you. Wow, that was a tough pill to swallow. I was overqualified. I said, no, I'm not. Honest. I'll work there. What was I going to do? God intervened because he crossed my paths with a pastor from San Antonio. And he laid on me a test of obedience. Everybody remember the story of Abraham? Abraham believed God and was counted unto righteousness. He obeyed God and it was counted unto righteousness. Right up to the point of sacrificing his son, right? God told me I'm supposed to go work for this pastor in San Antonio. He told me that in the middle of Wegmans, Wegmans grocery store. I was think it was in the cereal aisle. I nearly cried. I'm like, this is Texas. My family's in New York. I got some strange family in Arizona, but nobody in Texas. I went to church that night, and I talked to that pastor. I didn't even talk. He preached, and I was almost out the door of that small little church in Cornell, New York. And he shook my hand. He said, can I talk to you? I said, sure. We sat down, and basically, he just said, what do you think about coming to work for me in Texas? I said, you know what? God told me you were going to ask me. And I was nervous because I thought he was going to say what he exactly said. It was, well, come on down. I talked to him, and basically, it was not a wonderful success story. I got there, and I knew I needed to make about $40,000 a year to pay my bills. It turned out to be about $2 an hour, and I got to live in a trailer behind the church next to the dumpster, next to the baseball field. It was a horrible existence. How could I end up here? I don't believe it. Maybe I made a mistake, but I obeyed God. I want to encourage you. If I would have impart one solid piece of advice, follow God regardless of the cost. You have something at this school. It's divine. I choke up thinking about it. You don't find it anywhere else. You have the ability to be able to talk with people your own age that are seeking God in a similar place as you are. And it's those experiences that when you leave here, you'll hear God's voice. And you'll have the opportunity to follow or to not follow. To obey or to disobey. And when you obey God, the cost sometimes is heavy. But there is cheap compared to not obeying. So I went down there, and it gave me an opportunity to have my paths cross with an individual that we ended up starting construction. I started making more money than I ever knew. $100,000 a year. Wow, this is great. Construction company. I didn't know anything about construction, but I knew how to run a company. And he sold and did construction, and I managed the company. Boy, benefits. 7 years. Moved on. My Bible suggests a lot of successes, but along the way, I had the test of obedience, but I also had God brought a test of greed. I started getting maybe a little bit greedy. I want to bank. Let me press the limits. I ended up losing my entire life savings 3 times over. It's devastating. God put that test on me, the test of greed. Succeeding, but not with greed. All right. I survived that. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And God has just recently put me through a test of contentment. All right? I lost, even when markets are at their absolute highest, all-time highs, with 18, 28% this year against the stock market, and yet I managed to lose all my gains in the last 3 years. He didn't take everything, right? You know? But I had a test of contentment. And I realized that God was not angry with me. He really was working on my life to perfect something. He has a plan. He will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. And this is an area I don't really know if people that are going to school realize how important that is. To give an opportunity to let that take root into your life. That God has a work that He will perform in you. And this is where you learn to hear His voice. This is where you learn qualities that will make you a better person. And when you fail along the way, we have where we go? Skiing. I lost it. There we are. First time I went down that hill, it was not pretty. There were things in skiing. So if you don't crash, you're not trying hard enough. So don't be afraid of failures. Don't let failures define your life. All right? They are part of life. So now you have a tool that you can expand your realm of possibilities. Let me give you one more tool that's completely under your control. It is what defines and makes people wealthy and their wealth accumulation. And there's some plus or minus talk about people like Dave Ramsey and Larry Burkett. Debt-free. The concept, though, was great. Live debt-free. Live below your means. This will aid in your wealth accumulation more than anything you can possibly imagine. People cannot scrape 2 dimes together. There's only 2 things worth going in debt for. Only 2 things. A house and your education, not necessarily in that order. Those are the only 2 things.
Those are investments that pay dividends. Don't be afraid of the ability you have here. What you get here compared to what you can get for free someplace else is worth its weight in gold here. I promise you that. Why? It makes you a better member of society, better prepared for the opportunities to do. But essentially, real quick, have emergency cash on hand. You want to jot this down or just keep it in your mind. Then you save up 3 to 6 months worth of savings, snowball your debt, pay double payments, remove revolving debt, and just have your house and your education payment. Once you pay those off and save up 10 grand, then start thinking about investments. Until then, invest in yourself. Get yourself debt free. Because even though mathematically financial wisdom would say you can make the most dollars, profit maximization, with utilizing other people's money, there's a degree of freedom that comes from being debt free. Okay? Abraham's is right on the spot with that. And this is the boat and some other things, but those are minor things. Larry Cat was pretty good about that. Your education, invest in yourself. All right. So what about what Houghton does for you? Houghton has some disadvantages to overcome. There's no doubt about it. It's in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't bother me. People can't pronounce it. It doesn't bother me. We got great T-shirts because of that. You know, maybe it's not a leading tech school. Apple and Google, I don't know if they're recruiting there, but probably not. But does that matter? I submit to you, it doesn't. I'm telling you, just about every formula you can learn at any school is becoming an automated process or that there's an app for. So really what it matters is who's running the apps. Who's making the decisions. We talked about in poli-science today in one manner and a different manner in corporate finance class that it's important who's making the decisions, that they're making the right decisions. And I'm going to tell you, the general public out there do not have the quality of personality or depth of knowledge or wisdom or understanding to make the right decision. The world's going to be looking to you to make the right decision. It seems odd, but I promise you, 6, 8, 10 years from now, all of a sudden you're going to be the person that has to make a decision. And you're going to be nervous about it. But I tell you what, everybody around you will be glad that you make the decision because they have faith in you. Christian liberal arts. What is liberal arts? Liberal arts is not just a bunch of classes that you take across the gen ed classes you get across the finish line, to be certain. It really does give you the ability, learning from the philosophies and the theologians and the poets, really to give you that quality to be able to understand concepts, to conceptualize, to make you, and this says adaptability, to make you adaptable, flexible, versatile. And that really is keys to success. Because you may be good at this thing, a different process comes along, and nobody can do that. But if you're flexible enough or adaptable enough, you can shift. That's quality that, believe it or not many people have. But when you start studying the philosophers, the poets, etc., you'll end up having the qualities that inspire people to work around you. When they see you can empathize and encourage your clients or those you serve, your supervisors start saying, wow, this is somebody I'd rather work for. I did mention this, I tried not to say anything repetitive in the class, but Jeff Bezos of Amazon says that the key that he looks for in hiring people is hire somebody he would want to work with. All right? Hire somebody you want to work with. So being the person that Jeff Bezos wants to work with, I guarantee you, it's not going to be somebody at a state school per se. It's not that it would be. But you are giving here just a tangible quality that seems to cause Holy students to rise to the top. Emerson. Anybody familiar with Emerson? Writer, wrote on in education. Talked about being a free thinker, being able to think for yourself. And not so much to take us out of the factories and put us in white-collar jobs, but really to actually go back into the factories, a better member of society. To be able to think for yourself. You will be surprised how many people cannot think for themselves. You will. I don't want to say it judgmentally that you will be better than them. It's the wrong thing to say, right? But you will be better prepared to handle the situations of life, the situations at your work, because of what you're learning here. You don't realize it. I never realized it 2 years later. It's like, wow, that's a concept of learning ethics. I promise you, I never thought my ethics class would come. I thought I was an ethical person, but problems and philosophy was certainly something that rocked my world 7 years after I left home. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Being a better person is greater achievement than a bigger paycheck. Bigger paychecks are nice, but the lesson of contentment I learned this last year is that having more doesn't. There comes a point, more is nicer, but there comes a point where you don't need any more. If you have it, if God blesses you with it, bless others with it. And I promise you, if I get super successful enough to be able to buy a sports team, I will donate the Rich Whitehead Pizza and Ice Cream Diet Center. But hopefully I get to that level of success. But if I don't, that's all right, because I'm content. I'm not enamored with having to have more. All right, and that's an important concept to grasp. Right now, you guys can have more. It's okay if you want more than we have right now. But eventually get to the point where you need more. Emerson said, go back, work in the factory, be a member of society. But I don't want to work in a factory. I don't want to work in a factory. I get it. Everybody wants to be a manager, nobody wants to be a blue-collar worker. Well, I came home. I planned to get a 3.8, 4.0 GPA, get to the top university. I basically laid out my plan. I figured I had it in the bag. I had a significant Christian background, Christian college. This should be pretty easy. Fortunately, as a freshman, I discovered 2 in the morning mattress surfing on the stairwell. We had NABTAG, after midnight NABTAG, which now is Chamberlain Center. It was under construction our freshman year. I also didn't count on my good lit class having a different theology. I rocked my world when I got a B-. I made my GPA 2.3. Now, a measure of justice, that professor did get fired for heresy 2 semesters later, and I really still feel my grade should be corrected for that. I was not adaptable or flexible in my freshman year. But I did get my life back together. Eventually, ended up cum laude and graduated, happy with my accomplishments, set out to take the world. And I got to my finance company in Cleveland, ready to get a great, fantastic salary, and found out that business majors are $9 an hour is what I got as a first job working in a finance company. Being in finance doesn't necessarily mean you make big dollars. So you have to find a way that separates you from the rest. And that really comes to the quality of who you are. Because I don't care if you're making $9 an hour. I don't care if you work $4 an hour. If you are the person that God sent you to be, and you lead with the skill set you have, eventually those opportunities will rise. And the people that are making $4 an hour right next to you, they'll never see them, but you'll see them. And you'll have the strength of character to be able to take that risk. And if you've been living right financially, you'll have some savings so that you will, financially, you'll be able to take that risk. Take those risks. They're important. They're important to take. Look for them. I ended up becoming a firefighter. Professor Bates met me in San Antonio, and I'm sure he didn't mean this, but at the time, when I told him I was a firefighter, he said, really? Firefighter? He probably meant, really? A firefighter? He probably wouldn't meant. But I could see it, and I understand it. A firefighter, really? With all that experience, a firefighter. You know, I hated some, but it was good. This was the first job I ever had. I didn't have to sell anything until I got on e-board 1 year later, and I had some of my concepts of what we should do financially with our healthcare and contract and negotiations and legislative issues. And of course, I got involved with all that. It gave me opportunity because we had a $250 million a year contract, and somebody had to provide direction for that. Who's going to do that? Blue-collar people typically don't have the skill sets that you have in this room. And case in point, few of them do. And so I had opportunities to get involved with things I never thought were possible. Like lobbying senators in D.C. actually changing their blocking bills. I single-handedly, I don't like telling the story because it sounds like bragging, but our legislator tells it really well. I single-handedly stopped 7 bills from putting firefighters on Social Security, mandating us to work until age 70 and a half. Nobody stopped to realize that firefighters at 70 years old is not a good idea. It's not good. It's barely good idea at 30 or 40. But these opportunities came because I had the ethics and the philosophy and the quality to be able to comprehend deep topics. Okay? It's not necessarily what I learned at finance class, but that's required knowledge. So I don't want to bypass it. The success really comes from the perspectives of truths again, learning philosophy, ethics, literature, psychology. And success, of course, comes from God's blessing. But the ability to have the vision and versatility to adapt financial concepts to economy and reorganize their priorities in a manner that establishes trust and reunites my clients' outlook on life will bring me my success in my side business with the insurance company. To be able to relate to people, to find common ground, communication. I watch people around campus here, and certainly a little bit more in my day when we didn't have cell phones. A little bit less nowadays that was tucked away on our social media. But great discussions on how to fix the world's problems happen on the campus center. You know, debates about the meaning of life. These are your years to have those. When you get out in the field as a college, there's very few people interested in talking about the meaning of life. You don't miss that. I don't know if anybody really thinks that, but it was a deep part of my education. Anyways, finishing up where we started, contentment, success. Success for me is contentment. Being happy with your place in this world, finding where God put you, finding a way to be able to really fulfill His call in your life. And I don't care if you're making millions or if you're just playing guitar for the church or doing both. But God has a plan for your life. Contentment is the key. But along the way, there's things you can do. Don't be bound by what you were told you can or cannot do. All right? Break your paradigms. Reset them. Find peace and happiness amongst this contentious world we're living in. If only that your life ended up being significant to one other person. And relate to your fellow man. Don't shy away from talking about money, religion, and politics. Nobody talks about money, religion, and politics. Why? Because it's divisive. Why? Because it's personal. That's who people are. If you can't talk with somebody on that level, you're not going to have a relationship with that person. If you don't have a relationship with a person, you're not going to be able to find common ground and be able to accomplish something. This is a problem in politics. People are right, they're left. And they're that way because they were told by the media or by their parents. And you ask them, why do you believe that? And they don't know. I don't care if you're right or left. It really doesn't matter to me. I want to know why you are what you are. And if you can't tell people why you believe what you believe, you're just as guilty as the person that's on the wrong side of the equation. Because you're part of the problem. Know why you believe what you believe. About religion, about God, about your beliefs, about money, about relationships. Know who you are. And this is your time to find out who you are. Not when you're battling on other campuses, and I don't want to pick state campuses, but that's an analogy I can come up with right now. There's so much to deal with there. The snares in this world are on there that really occupy your time and efforts to either protect what you believe and not have a chance to really explore your own beliefs. I have friends that went to state schools and they have good times. A lot of them lose their Christianity work. Embrace your diversity. Love, respect one another. And most of all, embrace the ability to learn how to communicate. Right? Embrace somebody that's different than you. Some of my best friends, I'm about as far Republican as you possibly get. Some of my best friends are as far left as I can get. And boy, we call each other terrible names. And then we go out and have barbecue. It's not about fighting. It's about finding common ground. When you find common ground with your enemy, now you can get to work fixing problems. And when you're a problem fixer, that's what people want. That's what people want to do. That's what people want to give opportunities to. It's a problem solver. That's all I have.
to any of you for questions for Rich, and we have some time to allow for questions, so feel free to introduce yourself and ask away. I'm curious, for starters, the day-to-day, what are some of the habits that you have put into practice that were transformational to you and that you practice each and every day that enable you to be more successful?
25 air squats and 25 push-ups every morning. Literally, get your heart running, you know, and then attack your day. There's too many laziness that you would be surprised. I've lost, being a firefighter is great, but it contributed to my loss of faith in humanity. It's been a little bit difficult in the spiritual life. Seeing the lack of enthusiasm in life in the general public. So, you know, I do a little exercise, keep in shape, and attack the day. That's the first thing I do in the morning. And believe it or not, it sounds a little bit tricky. Read your Bible. When I was studying for promotion, it's the most competitive promotional exam is to become lieutenant, because you have everybody in EMS that is trying to get out of EMS and get back to 350 people testing for about 11 spots. And you score 98, you're not getting it. And they are very, very hard questions. 2,300 pages worth of material, which is 100 questions. And I managed to read the entire Bible in a 1-year period of study, while I was studying. I thought, you know what, if I do not pass this test because I'm trying to read the Bible, I can live with that. And I didn't pass that first year. I got a 95. It was just a little too low. And I did it again the following year. I had 98. I never had 93. So keep the priorities. Keep the first things first. So really, outside of keeping God first, stay active. These are the things I do. Opportunities show themselves. And don't be afraid to take risks. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm a sophomore. You mentioned that your senior quote was by Henry David Thoreau. Were you an avid reader of his, or did that quote just stick out to you?
So I left English Lit in my senior year to finish out those Gen Ed requirements because I had no use for English Lit. And we had Dr. Brussler, if you remember him. What a great man. He went back to Georgia Tech, I believe. I left that class wishing I had been a literature major. And I realized I probably did my entire college career wrong. I should have majored in English Lit and minored in business. That's how impactful that class was in my life. And so I read it that last semester in my college career, and amongst others, King Lear, all his antics, as well. I keep looking at Bill. You all know Bill Lyric, you and I before me, it's my freshman and sophomore year. A lot of shared experiences, for sure. But not an avid reader until my senior year. Yes, sir.
So, my name is Jerry Couch. I actually don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for coming and sharing. I really appreciate your story and some of the insight you really gave. Really appreciate your post following God and knowing what the gospel is really impactful. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
My name is Joe Gross. I'm a senior. So one of my biggest takeaways from tonight is being to diversify yourself as a person, whether that be socially, emotionally, spiritually, or whatever else it might be. So my question is, what kind of advice would you give us as students going into the business world to be able to diversify ourselves in terms of our career?
Are you musically related? Or do you have any musical abilities?
Oh,
no. Okay. I still work with that. I also have to be a musician. I'm thinking about my time in Ohio where I just came out to find my first job. What I did is I diversified myself and I found a small group to be a part of the church, 20s and 30s group to be a part of, kept my social life active with what I defined as a appropriate, positive group. 20 years later after that point, I guess it's not that long, it's about 11 years after that point, I lived in Texas, and they still came down with my best man, and I had a phenomenal relationship built at that time. Find an activity to be involved with, stay physically fit. It's hard to be physically fit when you're in the office all the time, but we got to work out weekends. Be involved with, periodically go to city council meetings so you can hear for yourself. Oh, that's the biggest problem. Firefighters, they're the worst. They don't show up to union meetings at all. They're not like up in Cleveland where mandatory that you don't show up. They, nobody even comes at all. You just go to one meeting a year and hear with your own ears. Decide with your own mind if they're telling the truth or not. Or whatever it is, at least you're operating on first-hand knowledge and not rumors. And I would say the same thing in the national politics too. Listen to the speeches, not just the reports. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kara, and I'm from Junior. It seems like you're pretty involved, like everywhere. Do you ever feel that you stretch yourself too far? I feel that a lot. And how do you deal with that?
Coffee. lots of coffee. It's funny. It's funny you say that because I get the dates right. I was running I was in the construction company. I was running that. I was playing guitar for a church on Central. Running a Sunday school there. Get in my car and broke the speed limit, getting over to the west side of San Antonio to play guitar for a church over there. And then we led a small group with a different church, and then expanded that. Our small group became 2 small groups. And I thought, my wife said the same thing. And then I left the first meeting, which I did periodically. And then I was neck deep doing investments, day trading and whatnot. And I don't have any idea how we have time to really do it. And I can tell you this though, a lot of our activities were involved with small group and church-related stuff, and then we kind of cut that out. We moved to another church. We got involved in the fire department. You work 24 hours, have 48 hours off, so you don't have the same schedule this week. It's every third week. And so I couldn't be a part of the music group. The small groups kind of fall by the wayside. And you know what? All that stuff was removed from our life. And you think, well, great, we got a lot of time, right? Still didn't have time. So the thing is that I found that the more you make time for the important things, somehow it works. I don't have a logical answer for it. But if you remove the things like small groups, koinonia, whatever you got going on at your church, because you don't have time, I promise you still don't have time for whatever it is you're trying to do. But somehow you make room in your life for that, somehow. There's always just enough time for everything. So you have to decide what's important to you.
Rich, thank you very much. We'll hang out. If you want to come up and talk with him individually, this is a token just to say thank you for flying all the way up from San Antonio to share his time, his education, experience with you, his story, and that's the sacrifice that he made because he believes in all of you in this room. So thank you very much, Rich. Appreciate it.
Wow, that did kind of put a ring in sense. So with this one, you said that this is actually how do you prepare yourself? I can't even self-credit. That's a great question. I don't know. I
Driving nuts. I don't like. We got days. We have a calendar. Before we had daytimers, and you remember daytimers? Yeah. Sometimes I
Yeah, but they're pretty driven, well-meaning kids. I like it.
Oh, okay, good. What's your advice?
Yeah, I like
finding my purpose or my calling, like God has for
I know you all look done.
we all want to see God.
It's scary.
Good answers and revelations. There's not a lot for me, except for always like to be was it Daniel right? Well, that poor guy, he had to wait 30 days one day, you know, to find out.